It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in the studio today. We're going to be talking mosquitoes, Zika virus, West Nile virus. Monsoon is coming up just around the corner, so Monica Kriner is in studio. She's the environmental health specialist with the Yavapai County Health Department. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You were here a year ago, and you gave us some good information on Zika virus. And that's where we're going to start today, is we're going to start with the Zika virus. I thought we'd do that. We are preparing for monsoon. I don't know that necessarily the weather we've got coming in this week is monsoon, but it's definitely going to be wet and something we haven't seen for a long time. Let's roll back a little bit. You were talking before the show that mosquitoes really aren't too active at this point in time so far the year.
No, mosquitoes really do need that moisture. They need that pooling water. They need those wet flower pots and things like that. So with the dry weather we've had, we're just not seeing many. We have set traps, did last week, really didn't catch many, less than 30.
Okay. And I was telling you before the show, too, that when I'm out and about doing stuff outside, I've noticed there seems to be kind of a shortage of bugs. There's a shortage of everything when there's no water. So it's been kind of a quiet year so far. But monsoon is pretty much guaranteed every year. So, I mean, this is going to pick up. Wouldn't you agree? Oh,
almost certainly, yes. Yeah. The mosquitoes will pick up. The complaints will pick up in our office. As soon as we do see that first round of moisture coupled with the warmer weather, they'll become very active.
And mosquitoes are well, you've got to love mosquitoes. I mean, you study them. You know them pretty well.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a love relationship, but I do enjoy taking a look at them. I do enjoy the lab work that I do. Here in Yavapai County, we do test for West Nile virus. If we get what we call a positive, we don't do any kind of abatement or anything. We don't spray like they do down in other counties, but we do educate. We'll hang door hangers, just letting people know, hey, we found some West Nile virus in your community. And it has it's gone a long way. Education goes a long way. Just spraying for those mosquitoes and hoping for the best is good, but I think the education portion of it, it really gets people thinking.
So you think we've seen an improvement then over the years? Because I think I've done this show with you a few times now, and I think I've done a show about mosquitoes and the West Nile virus, and then most recently, just the last couple of years now, we've had you come in talking about the Zika virus and kind of looked at the different changes that have happened there. But do you think the education part is actually working? Are we doing a good job with this, and people are kind of getting the idea of the whole thing?
I think so. Yeah. I think getting that word out there on how to kind of abate your own property, how to keep from breeding mosquitoes on your own property has gone a long way, and people seem to take to that.
Awesome. That's good. That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that, because there for a while back in years ago, I mean, I remember we could talk about fields that would have tons and tons of mosquitoes in them, ruts and roads that would fill with water. Some of the stuff you can't avoid. I mean, mosquitoes are going to breed no matter what, but we can, and we're going to talk about this more towards the end of the show too. There are things you could do to reduce the amount of mosquitoes that could possibly breed in your own backyard. And I think last year you were telling us that mosquitoes really don't travel very far.
They really don't. Mosquitoes travel about the area size of a football field. Okay. Some mosquitoes less. They really do like to stay near their breeding area. When we trap for mosquitoes, we can tell when we're on a breeding site by the number of male mosquitoes that we get. Now, the male mosquitoes, they don't bite people. They're nectar collectors. But the amount of males that we get in a certain trap will tell us how close that breeding site is.
Is it easy to tell the difference between a male and a female mosquito? Because I look at them, they all look the same to me. They're so small.
It actually is. Okay. It actually is very easy, even with the naked eye. You don't even need the microscope for that. The male mosquitoes, being nectar collectors, have that what we call the little feather duster up around their proboscis, the part that bites you, and it kind of looks like a fuzzy
pipe cleaner.
Pipe cleaner, correct, on both sides. Whereas the females are more clean cut, just a proboscis with a couple of antennae. So yes, you can sort through those males and females pretty quickly.
Oh, okay. So if you find a bunch of pipe cleaners, then you know that this is the breeding ground. I mean, this is where it's happening.
Let's take a look at what kind of standing water we have in that area. Correct.
Okay. So what's new with the Zika virus? Let's start there, because that was the first one a couple of years ago. We're trying to make sure we don't bring it into the U.S.
Correct. The state has a lot of focus on the Zika virus right now. When we first started out, there was a lot of unknown with that virus. They've kind of narrowed it down now to more probability. What's the probability of the Zika virus developing in a certain area of the state, in particular in your county? Yavapai County does trap for the West Nile virus mosquitoes, which are your Culex mosquitoes. However, in those West Nile traps, we do catch some of those Aedes mosquitoes, which are your Zika mosquitoes. This year, though, we have a couple of what we call specialty traps just for those that we're going to be setting out in certain areas that we have caught these Aedes mosquitoes in our Culex traps. So we'll be able to pinpoint more the areas in Yavapai County where we will find the probability being higher for Zika brought in. So I know we were talking earlier, you were asking, how does the Zika get brought in?
Yeah, how does the Zika get brought in? That's kind of an interesting process here.
Right now, the counties that trap, the state hasn't found any what we call locally acquired Zika virus in humans or mosquitoes. So how it would get brought in is, say you went to Puerto Rico, and you were on vacation, you got bit by some Aedes mosquitoes.
A Zika virus mosquito?
A Zika virus mosquito,
okay.
Correct.
Bites me while I'm in Puerto Rico.
Bites you while you're in Puerto Rico. You're going to bring that virus back to the states here, in particular Yavapai County.
It's going to be in my bloodstream, flowing back and forth.
Exactly, exactly. And then one of our local Aedes, our Zika mosquitoes, would bite you and get the virus into the population here. That's how the state's kind of looking at the probability of, what can we do to pinpoint these areas. So that's kind of what Yavapai County is doing. They're going to start trapping specifically for these mosquitoes to see where they hang out at. So
what does the Aedes Zika virus carrying mosquito like? What's her and his territory look like?
The Culex mosquitoes, we're looking for that ponding water, the water where they can lay their raft of eggs on the water and the eggs hatch out. The Aedes or Zika mosquitoes, just a little bit different. They like the wet soil, so not necessarily the water line, but a few inches up from the water line where the soil's moist. What they do is they lay their eggs and then they wait for a flood. So when the water line rises, those mosquitoes the eggs will hatch out. So if you think about, areas in your yard.
Irrigated areas.
Irrigated areas, maybe a flower pot that you water once a week or so. That's where you're going to, perfect breeding sites for those mosquitoes.
Flower pots, wow, yeah, you don't even think about that, but right there in your own backyard, huh? Maybe there's fruit trees or something that you water on a regular basis. I would imagine mosquitoes are pretty darn smart. I imagine they're going to go like, oh, look at this here. This ground gets wet on a regular basis. And they're going to know that.
I'm not sure how they know that type of stuff, but they seem to find those areas.
I don't think we give them as much credit as we should. We got to take our first break already, okay? Environmental Health Specialist Monica Kriner in studio today from the Yavapai County Health Department. We're talking Zika virus, West Nile virus, and what you can do to protect yourself from it. Stick around, countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
How I define making? In the broadest possible terms, it is making something extant in the world that didn't exist. Everybody who's ever made anything is bringing something into fruition for a reason, and that act in and of itself makes us stewards of our culture. It's something that we're talking about. It's a response. Actually, it's telling a story. That's really what it is. And I include everything that could be made: painting, sculpture, welding, all of that.
Yellow is positive.
When a kid gets their hands on the world and learns that they can make their fantasy play, that they can make their reality, that's power. And as far as I'm concerned, everyone should feel that kind of power. There we go. If there's something that interests you to bring into the world, that's fantastic. Go figure out how to do it. Go tell your own story. There it is. And so I want to know why you make. Let's go.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Welcome back to Countywide. Monica Kriner from the Yavapai County Health Department studio. Today we're learning all kinds of things about mosquitoes. Zika virus, West Nile virus. So we do not have the Zika virus in Arizona right now.
No, we don't.
As far as we know, there are the Zika virus, the Zika mosquitoes, the Aedes. Is it spelled Aedes?
Aedes, Aedes.
Aedes. Okay, the Aedes mosquitoes, although they are Zika mosquitoes, don't actually have the Zika virus in them.
No.
Okay.
They don't at this point.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good. Okay, so we're going to hopefully keep that from happening. West Nile virus. Anything new on the West Nile virus? And one of the questions I was going to have for you is, when we had the Africanized honeybees come into Arizona, and I remember it was talked about how after they mix and mingle with the local populations enough, eventually their aggressiveness would not go away completely, but not be quite as extreme as it was in the beginning. Do we see that with the mosquitoes too, where the West Nile virus comes in and over the years it kind of, I guess, gets diluted after a while?
I'm not sure about that. Yeah. There was no West Nile detected in Yavapai County at all last year.
Oh, that's good to hear.
We start our trapping about mid-May through about mid-October, depending on obviously the moisture, the monsoon, the temperatures, those types of things. We test once a week. We trap once a week. We got nothing. We had no positive West Nile mosquito pools at all in Yavapai County.
Did that surprise you?
It did.
Yeah.
It actually did.
Yeah.
I get reports from Maricopa County and Coconino County and all that. Maricopa was the only one that reported anywhere close to us that had any West Nile positive mosquitoes. So very fortunate there. We're hoping with the slow start this season that we don't see that explode.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a little unusual because we've had it every year.
We have had it. It looks like I've only been doing this is going on my third year, but I've only, looking back, we've had West Nile pretty much at least a few positive pools every year with the exception of last year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wow. Any idea why? Do we know why?
We're not quite sure.
Okay.
Not quite sure why. It just didn't come up
happy.
positive. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: Do we know how long if a mosquito lays its egg, like the Aedes, if she lays her eggs in the soil that, of course, it has to be moist, it doesn't take long for those eggs to hatch, I would imagine. They don't probably go through a very long incubation period?
I'm not quite sure of the time. It's you do have to have that flood.
That
water has to come up, and it's almost, I don't know. To me, it seems like it's a rehydration. But
that's what I'm getting at. It's
correct.
Almost like the eggs dehydrate, maybe. And I was wondering if we know how long they can actually sit in that dry soil before they have to be rehydrated, basically.
Yeah, that's not something I have right in front of me. Definitely, it would be something to look up. But during those summer months, when it's a little bit warmer, I would say that once that wet soil that they've laid those eggs in floods, you're going to have those mosquitoes.
Okay, and we're expecting, I think we've got a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms right now. The best chance is going to be Friday night and then Saturday, because that tropical depression's coming up through the Baja, and it's supposed to come through Arizona and give us hopefully a little bit of something happening. Maybe we should get into the being proactive about this.
Oh, certainly.
Let's do that for the rest of the show. So what are some of the things that I can do to kind of protect myself, my family, my property, because we learn now that mosquitoes don't travel very far. So if you can get like your neighborhood watch together to kind of talk about this, you could probably wipe them out of an entire neighborhood, or at least eliminate a lot of the areas for them, right?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of the complaint calls that we get is typically on a neighbor or a neighbor on your back fence.
Old pool.
Could be a pool, could be a fountain, could be my neighbor's got a few old tires in the backyard. Those types of things. When we go out to take a look at these complaints, that's typically what we find. We find that there's something collecting water, and it's not necessarily at the complainant's house, but it may be a neighbor, and it may be the one on your back fence, not the one beside you. So some of the things that you can do, definitely eliminate any of that standing water. Mosquitoes, they'll breed in a bottle cap. So keep the trash cleaned out of your house. Keep your gutters cleaned on your roof. People don't think about that. That debris collects up there and it'll pool that water. Things like children's toys, swimming pools, those types of things, make sure there's no standing water in those. Those are things you can do around your house. As far as protecting yourself for when the mosquitoes are out,
wait, let's go back. Now, I want to hit on something there. You said something, and you said it really quick there, and we've talked about this before. You said bottle cap.
A bottle cap, correct.
Yeah, like, so if you take the cap off a soda and flip it over, how much water does a mosquito actually need to breed in? A regular old mosquito?
Well, if you just have one mosquito, it lays a raft of eggs. A bottle cap full of water is plenty.
And do we know how many eggs she lays at once?
That's a good question. 50?
50?
100?
Hundreds?
Yes.
Yeah, so, and then their life cycle can't be very long, so I imagine those then populate, and then of course we got more breeding, and as long as there's water around.
As long as there's water around, correct.
Now, if I live next door to someone who say, because I mean, we've got people that irrigate up and down throughout the Verde Valley. Irrigation's just it's a thing, it's a way of life. It's been a part of the Verde Valley for, centuries. It's probably pretty likely that if neighbors are flooding yards and fields and things like that, there's not much I'm going to be able to do about that.
And there's really not much we can do about it either. Typically with that flood irrigation, especially in that Camp Verde area, we will get complaints. People over-irrigate, a little bit of water that stands for too long. That's usually when the complaints go up. Typically we take those complaints, we'll go out and trap just to see what's out there.
Even a rut in the road, if someone drives down a dirt road that's wet and leaves a rut in it, if you're saying a bottle cap, mosquito can come right in there and boom. I mean, it seems to me like something that we can't do. We can't stop them completely.
We can't stop them completely. It's always nice to know that not every mosquito species carries Zika or West Nile virus or whatever. Some of the more vicious biters, the ones that really just attack you, are non-virus carrying mosquitoes. And those are your floodwater mosquitoes. So you may be getting bit, but you may not be getting bit by a virus carrying mosquito.
Okay. I'll tell you, sometimes, do we know what makes them itch so bad?
That is the saliva that they inject into your skin when they're biting you, so that you don't feel it. Your body creates a reaction to it.
It's the worst. We're going to take another break. Monica Kriner from the Yavapai County Health Department is in studio today. We're talking about mosquitoes and viruses. Stick around countywide, back in just a couple minutes.
It appears these hot ashes are about to be dumped, which could possibly start a wildfire. How will Smokey deal with such a hot situation? The garden hose defense. Next, a thorough stir. Then another spray. And finally, feeling if the ashes are cool.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, yes, the selfie. A ritual practiced so frequently with this tribe, but not so much by Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Making was a big part of the foundation of what I wanted my children to do and to have fun with.
Growing up in the Bushnell house was like Nutty Professor craziness. I know, that's true.
Getting burned on a hot glue gun, that was okay. You know, burning themselves with a soldering iron, that was okay.
I was 6 when I learned how to solder.
We learned how to paint, we learned how to sheetrock, and all these things had such lasting impact.
I felt that creativity would give them entree into being able to do anything they wanted.
Whatever we showed our dad, it was always the coolest thing in the world to him.
Good ideas are very often considered silly at their onset.
And by that definition, we haven't even really grown up, you know? I mean, the projects have just gotten bigger.
We all make and have fun. Now the question is, why do you make?
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a few minutes left of the program. Monica Kriner from the Yavapai County Health Department, Environmental Health Specialist. Let's talk about what we can do to protect ourselves from mosquito bites.
All right, so the first thing, if you're out in a mosquito-prone area, definitely bug spray. That DEET 35% or below. I've read some things that say that anything with more than 35% DEET doesn't have any meaningful protection, so 35% or below DEET. Wear long sleeves. Make sure to keep children covered and those types of things. As far as your property, I came up with a really good checklist.
Okay.
It's a residential checklist for mosquito breeding sites.
Okay.
If you want to contact the county health department, I'd certainly be happy to pass this along, but it has some things that maybe you don't think about, like pet bowls. You know, standing water in pet bowls. Make sure to change that out. Keep your area free of any kind of garbage, old cars, you know, I mentioned earlier, children's toys, those types of things. And then there's some natural environment suggestions on here about vegetation, not attracting adult mosquitoes. Keep your area free of bamboo. I had no idea before this checklist came out. Yeah, apparently mosquitoes like to breed in that. My guess is that it does probably the way it grows. It collects those little pools of water.
Sure. I can see the leaves coming up, and then there's that little pocket where the water can grab. Okay,
exactly.
Okay.
Keep your nearby ditches free of standing water. Take a look at your yard. Does it drain properly? Do you have areas in your yard that do hold water when it rains?
Okay.
So definitely would be willing to pass this list on. Just a little checklist that you can go through and walk your property and make sure that you're not the source of the mosquitoes.
Yeah, a lot of information can be found on the Yavapai County Health Department website. It's really easy to go in there. There's all kinds of information about different things that we talk about on the show. That's how I get ideas for the show. That's how I get them. This is just a standard because it's one of those things we got to warn people about and just remind folks about that. So. Okay, I'm trying to think of anything else we need to talk about. I guess the time of day when, you know, it's that time of the year, it's summer, where it's brutal to be outside between, say, I don't know, 11 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's the hottest part of the time of the day. So you want to be out in the morning and you want to be out in the evening. But then our friends the mosquitoes, they like to be out in the early morning.
That's correct. So your Culex mosquitoes are what we call your dustodon. Those are your West Nile virus mosquitoes. If you're getting bit in the morning and in the evening, more than likely what you're getting bit by are those Culex species mosquitoes. Now, the Zika mosquitoes are an all-day long mosquito. When we set those traps, we set them in the morning and we pick them up in the afternoon, whereas the West Nile virus mosquitoes, we set those traps in the evening, let them run all night, pick them up in the morning. Some of your floodwater mosquitoes, they just bite all the time. They just what we call vicious biters. They prefer to just feed on you. So yes, they different characteristics depending on the mosquitoes, but here in Yavapai County, we have those Culex, those dustodon mosquitoes. We have those Aedes mosquitoes that are your daytime biters, and we have those Serophora mosquitoes, which are your floodwater mosquitoes, and they'll just bite you if you're in their area.
I heard that if your blood's sour, they don't like to feed on you.
Oh, I don't know about that.
All right, so it's just it's one of those things, right? It's
guess
garbage. So. Yeah, so lots of lemonade and stuff in the summertime, but apparently that doesn't. Yeah, that's what I'd heard. That's what I'd heard, Monica.
Okay, well that doesn't work for me.
Okay, it doesn't work for you. All right. Well, Monica, thank you so much for coming in
Thank
again
you. It
and
was nice
letting
to
us
see you.
know. And you guys will let me know if there's certain areas we need to warn folks about. You always do. It's always
most certainly.
You know, so that is fantastic. Good to hear we didn't have any West Nile last year. Maybe we can repeat that this year. So
that would be fantastic.
we'll see what happens. All right, guys. That's going to wrap up today's Countywide. Thank you as always for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.